So welcome to this year's New Jersey Association for Lifelong Learning annual conference. Thank you all for registering, for participating year in and year out. NJALL, because we are not a membership organization, and we made that decision maybe more than a decade ago, we really think of ourselves as something that people participate in, right, rather than pay dues to and belong to. And so your activities, your engagement is New Jersey Association for Lifelong Learning. So you are NJALL. We're the board, but you are the organization. So thank you for everything that you do every day for adult learners in your community and for your colleagues working in the field. So then with no further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our president, Jessica Tompkins.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I also wanted to start with a couple of thank yous. I know this is the beginning of the conference, not the end, but I'm actually coming to the end of my recent term as president. So I wanted to take the chance to thank, first of all, the NJALL board members who are here, and we have some past board members here too. The NJALL board members are all volunteers and they're all incredibly busy people. And every month we come together and meet, and everyone is working on projects to try to strengthen adult literacy in New Jersey. So it's the very best people to get to be around and work with. And I really appreciate all of you for all that you do. And I also wanted to thank other people here who've given NJALL input in this past couple of years and volunteered to join committees and shown up for events. Like Eric said, you guys are also part of NJALL. Some of you have played the role of inspiring us to become better advocates and learn how to do that better this past year. So we really appreciate all of that involvement. And this conference, of course, is one of our biggest activities of the year. So most importantly, I'd like to thank Eric for organizing this and many conferences before it. He's done this job cheerfully for us for so many years as a volunteer and put together a really great program for us and also given us so many chances to connect with our colleagues from around the state and beyond the state over the next few days. So thank you for making all of this happen for us again.
Well,
Um,
as a Finnish American, I just want to protest the idea that I do it cheerfully. That I don't do anything
yes,
cheerfully. Finnish.
yes. I thank you for willingly,
Yes, there you go.
and competently.
Yeah.
I don't even want to praise you too much. It's not that. It's just a very good job is what it is,
Yeah.
Eric, and we appreciate you. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I hope you all have a wonderful experience at the conference. We will say thank you to Eric, but not too effusively, just when you get the chance, just on the down low. So I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thanks, Jessica. Um, so this is a little bit of I'll share that at some other point. So Christian, did you want to talk about the scholarship breakfast?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I just put on the chat um, some of the information we're still finalizing, and I'm going to put the link by itself because it doesn't come out well there uh, for registration. We're still working on the little details, and the communication should be going out soon for save the date. And those of you that want to be with us, it's going to be on Thursday, June 25th from 10 to 12, as always at the Brookdale Community College. And you can pre-register for it right now if you want to. We will love to have you. This is a very special event where we recognize and appreciate the work that students from adult education programs throughout the state have accomplished and will be accomplishing. In fact, we have two students that are going to be awarded that day. So we're looking forward to see all of you there if you can.
Okay, thanks. Anybody want to talk about the other awards in addition to the scholarship part? I don't know if
Well, we also have an annual award for Teacher of the Year, and we have an annual Leadership Award, and that information goes out through our constant contact. And we've now combined scholarship with our award ceremony so we can get to present those awards in person. And so that'll be another piece of the event.
Right, thanks. Um, I'll also give a sales pitch for Saturday this week, Saturday morning. One of the last sessions of the conference will be some of the winners from the Adult Learner Writing Contest, reading their work. We've done this for the last few years, and it's really, really great. They get to have an audience, they get to talk about their process, and then read their work. So last I checked, about 6 or 7 students have already agreed that they're going to be there. And for those of you that saw the announcement, this year's categories were memoir, nonfiction, fiction, poetry, photography, art, and this year was the first year that we added a video category. And actually, so the student that created the award-winning video is going to show her video and talk about it. So it's a great little 2-minute video. So I encourage everybody to come attend. And then sort of traditionally, the session after that is I'll share some writing prompts, and we'll all write, just like, because it's fun to write. So we'll write together, not as student and teacher, but just as people who want to write. So, okay, so the program was sent out to everybody whose emails I had. So if you have any colleagues who are asking you, hey, I registered, but I didn't get the program, it's possible that we have an incorrect email. So have them send, I'll put here our email address again. And so they can send us an email, and then I'll make sure that they that they'll get the program. Okay? Or actually, can somebody drop in the Gmail as I'm moving stuff? All right. So so then, without any further ado, I'm gonna open up the conference with a plenary, and really, it's an update on advocacy efforts that we have undertaken and that many of you have undertaken. We just had a really good session at the Literacy New Jersey conference about not quite a month ago. And as Jessica said, we had a series of events over the year where some of you came and shared your expertise and insights. So this is a work in progress. And some of it is stuff you probably already know, but we're really thinking about how we're gonna really maximize our ability to advocate. So let me share. So I'm archiving this, and I will also upload the thanks, Karen. So and I will also upload the PowerPoint to a conference website afterwards. So what's the need for adult education in New Jersey? I'm going to think about this in a couple different ways. So the first is if we just think about a high school diploma. And in the last census, the last US Census, in the state of New Jersey, 11% of the population between 18 and 24 does not have a high school diploma, right? This is a large number of people. And then 10% of the population over the age of 25 does not have a high school diploma. And if you look at the numbers, actually it increases as you go up in demographic groups, right? So we can see the result of decades of educational issues systemically, individually, really piling up. So we can see that the numbers are quite large for adults who need high school diplomas. So in the past, the state actually had, in addition to, accreditation programs and things like the GED, we also had an adult high school program, which Judy Faraday, who used to be a member of the NJALL board, was very involved in. And that actually was really flexible in terms of the type of credits that students could apply towards getting their diploma. And then when they finished, they would get a diploma from their local high school rather than a GED certificate from the state. Those schools are still technically on the books in the state, so it might be something that we want to explore. But clearly, you're seeing this in your programs, right? I'm speaking to the chorus here, right? That folks need high school diplomas. Why? Well, high school diplomas traditionally associated with better health outcomes. We know this both for men and for women. Historically, women with higher levels of education, higher levels had had less children. So sometimes my students are like, oh, does it work like a prophylactic? No, it doesn't work like a prophylactic. It's a question of like people's life choices and chances. This holds true globally as well, that the higher level of education, the less children women have. And for men, we know things like high school diplomas and literacy is associated with prostate care. So men with lower levels of literacy, there's some correlation between higher levels of prostate cancer and things like that. So we know that literacy has a direct impact on health. Of course, high school diploma is also associated with better outcomes for children, right? Children's education, children getting to college, children getting the kind of jobs that they want. Clearly, high school diploma is associated with being employed, right? So folks who don't have high school diploma are far more likely to be unemployed, and folks with high school diplomas earn more money, the jobs that they have, right? So there's lots and lots of things that high school diploma is associated with. So part of this is thinking through what we're saying to our representatives at the state level. So in addition to these 4 things, what are some things that you think would be important for us to point out to the legislators and to the governor's office when we talk to them that a high school diploma is associated with? And you can either, mute and share, or you can put it in the chat, but are there other things that you see as really, really important when it comes to thinking about the value of a high school diploma? Yeah, Eileen, do you want to unmute and say more about that?
Do I?
Can you? I'm going to rephrase it. Can you?
I'm an instructor at Brookdale, the youth program. So for me, I have 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and there's a definite reason they all dropped out of high school. And although I am not privy to that reason, it's the most impacting thing that has happened to each individual. And yet, just like Vivian said, more confidence, the self-esteem and the pride that goes along with it when you're 16, 17, 18, the inevitable disgrace of having to tell somebody that they left high school, I think that drives the bulk of my students.
Okay. And I would also argue that, I think that's always been true, but I think within a more generalized mental health crisis around the country, it's even more problematic. It's an even bigger issue now with the widespread issues that way. Other thoughts on why a high school diploma is so important and the pitch that we can make to legislators that we talk to about this?
I think just the generational aspect of this, that it's not just, this person and their children, but then like, their grandchildren, and just how it lifts up communities economically when you have more people having at least a high school diploma.
Yeah, Lynn, I think that's an important point. I think the intergenerational to the grandchildren. So not only the outcomes for the child in the nuclear family, but the outcomes for the family, across multiple generations. Yeah, I think that's important. Other folks?
Eric, I'm sorry, Eric,
Yeah,
if I can just add, really personal achievement, because beyond the whole economic part of it, completing high school just leads to a higher self-esteem, and it provides a sense of accomplishment. So with that, they would tend to seek greater career opportunities or a new pathway to higher education beyond diploma. So if they can achieve that personal growth, then they'll want to finish high school and they'll want to earn increased earnings for a living for their family, not just the basic minimum wages.
Right. And we know actually one of the biggest benefits of having a diploma is being able to go to college, right? And then that maximizes, I'm trying to think what the business language is. What do they say when you're sort of like, it's a something maximizer? What is it when like things cascade? I forget, like I'm not a business person. But so, yeah, so things increase in the benefits. Michelle, do you want to talk about that, the increased community involvement?
I think we can look at it from like sort of multiple avenues, but one thing that we see in our program is that when folks are coming in for classes, we're also telling them and sharing information about other things. And that when you are involved in an education program, that might also mean that now you to participate in something else that is happening in the community, because we're all sharing information. But we also see that a lot of our students become interested in voting and volunteering and getting out the vote. We have one student who always brings in articles, and then he actually does quite a bit of carpooling and getting people to vote or to doctor's appointments. And so it's just widens everybody's involvement when they're involved in a program like ours.
Yeah. Jessica and I were just talking about Equipped for the Future, which was a framework for adult education that was developed in the 90s. I know that I'm older than everybody else on the call, so you might all not have experienced it, but Equipped for the Future, for those of you that didn't see it or work with it, basically said, okay, here's 4 roles that adults have in the community. And let's think about the literacy, the reading, the writing, and the language requirements for those roles. And it was, citizen, community member, family member, worker, and learner. And so each one of those things required certain skills and certain support, not just worker. So much of what we have now is just worker, right? And not citizen, family member, or learning because you want to learn, right? That our organization is called the Association for Lifelong Learning, right? Not just literacy, right? So we want to embrace that. So, all right. So certainly, thanks. These are clearly things that we need to talk to about other folks. This is another perspective that I think is also important. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with this information, but folks with higher levels of education, they get probation more often than other people. Their sentences are less than other people, and significantly, right? So lower levels of education mean you're less likely to get probation, you're less likely to get less than the sort of expected, and a lot more.
Well,
right?
they're less likely to commit crime in the first place.
Say that again, Karen?
They're less likely to commit crime in the first place.
Yes.
And yeah, and they also, people who have high school diplomas are more likely to spend money in taxes and spend money in the community.
Yes. The other thing, Karen, that's interesting about the high school diploma is that you can look at the types of crimes that folks commit with high school diplomas and not high school diplomas, and then who gets punished for that. And certain crimes are treated differently, even though it may harm lots and lots of people as opposed to one person. So we also want to think about the impact on folks that may be system impacted or system involved. Traditionally, I've been involved in this organization for nearly 2 decades. We haven't had a great connection to folks working in the prison education system, correctional education. We've tried, but it's like a kind of a different silo. So if any of you have connections to those silos, certainly we as an organization would be happy to kind of collaborate and work on that. I know there's some structural things that makes it difficult, but I think if we don't account for all learners, including folks who are system impacted or currently incarcerated, then we're really not addressing the population that we're committed to. So another way to think about the need for adult education in New Jersey is to think about the PIAC levels, right? So this is an international assessment of skills, global assessment of skills. And in New Jersey, the last PIAC completed with all the data was 2017. They're in the process now of, their testing and fidelity testing for the next round, right? But at level 1 or less, you can see on the screen, this is folks who are experiencing difficulties in comprehending printed material, right? They may be able to do very sort of immediate daily life tasks, but not much beyond that. And they may be functionally illiterate, right? So, and in New Jersey, there's 21% of the population is at PIAC level 1 or less, right? So think about that in terms of somebody's daily life. Think about that in terms of somebody's ability to advocate for themselves, for their family, for their community, right? Clearly, this is a concern. Similarly, the numeracy skills in New Jersey, about 30% of people are at PIAC level 1 or less, right? And so folks can kind of do basic arithmetic, but beyond that, it's very, very difficult. And actually, to go back to the folks who are system impacted or incarcerated, their levels of numeracy are actually lower than their levels of literacy. So numeracy is a really profound issue for folks that are system impacted or currently incarcerated. And we don't talk about it that much. So every year I try to have at least one session on numeracy, and we do have a session this year. So any folks here who are numeracy people that want to give an argument for what we need to do in terms of really focusing more attention on numeracy and why?
Personal
Karen?
finances. Dealing with personal finances is always a big one.
Yes. Right. That's an immediate sort of organic use of that. Other folks? I know many math teachers, and the thing that they hate the most is when people say, oh, I'm not a math person. They're like, no, everybody's a math person. Like, you use math all day long for personal finances, for shopping, for getting gas and things like that. Like, we use numeracy constantly, right? Anybody else that does numeracy? So there's a national adult numeracy network. And we had some folks from there in the past. I don't know if anybody in the state participates in that. So another way to think about the need for adult education in New Jersey is English skills. So the last US Census, in the state of New Jersey, about 13% of the population speak English less than very well. Right. So it's going to vary by county, right? But overall, the state, it's 13%. So same thing, right? So speaking English is associated with similar things, right? So better health outcomes, improved educational outcomes for children, employment, increased wages, some of the things that you've already mentioned, self-esteem, confidence, interpersonal transfer of skills. Anything else that you'd want to add to specifically the English skills that students gain by being in programs?
Integration into the community.
Okay, can you say more about that one?
Just being just being more involved in the community at all different levels, whether it's, as parents in their children's activities or school, or just going to town meetings, just being a part of, being, I hate to say more American, but just becoming, just a part of the community around you.
Okay. One of the projects I worked at when I was teaching volunteer English at the Make the Road New Jersey was Make the Road New Jersey was arguing for municipal IDs in Elizabeth, and it was actually successful. And those municipal IDs allowed people to, to go to the school to pick up their kid, to go to the library, to do the types of things that, Lynn, that you're talking about. You can be out and in the community and not worrying all the time. So other things that English, yeah, Karen?
It's a safety issue in the community, and on the job. And also, I think media literacy is becoming a really important issue now.
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about is, and this is kind of a long-going conversation, like digital literacy, computer literacy, media literacy, information literacy. I mean, the state K-12 standards now has an information literacy standard. And so I think as a field, we need to think about how we want to approach that. Do we want to kind of highlight it as a separate thing, or do we want to integrate it into all of the other things that we're talking about? I think strategically, there's probably an argument for either way. But certainly we should pay more attention to that. A couple of years ago, we had somebody at the conference that gave a presentation on information literacy, and I think it might be archived. But that's certainly something we can explore. Karen, and also this is a good but sad segue in terms of safety. Just want to think for a moment about Nur Amin Shah Alam. I don't know if you all know his case. It was up near Buffalo. He was nearly blind, spoke no English. He was out walking with a curtain rod that he was using as a cane, ends up on a woman's porch. She calls the cops. The cops show up, tase him, beat him up, take him into custody. ICE picks him up, says, all right, we don't need you. Drove him 5 miles away from his house, left him at a Tim Hortons with no way to contact his family, and he froze to death. So here's terrible tragedy, systemic racism, and English made him vulnerable. There's many people who are even more vulnerable because of their lack of English. So I just want to point that out when we're thinking about these things. Okay, so what's the level of support in the state? It's really difficult to say. 13 years ago, I was tasked with doing an assessment of the state. And at that point, I figured that we were supporting around 3% of adults that would benefit from receiving services. So I can't imagine the number is higher. It's possibly the number is lower. You all know how long your waiting lists are. You know how long, people who don't even go on the waiting list because they're like, what's the point of going on this waiting list because it's so long. So I think it would be helpful if we got a real sense of kind of where we are 13 years later, particularly with changes in, online learning, mobile, distance learning, and all this kind of thing. So we don't know how much we're actually helping people. So then what's the funding that we're talking about? So the fiscal year 26, the state of New Jersey from WIOA Title II is getting, $19.8 million. Okay? That's federally allocated based on census and other facts. And there's a required state match of 25%. But beyond that, there's really not much else in terms of state funding. There's other lines that haven't been funded. There's other lines that have been, taken off the books. So we're really, as a state, incredibly dependent on the WIOA funding. And so, as you know, last year, the Trump administration illegally withheld WIOA funds that had already been encumbered and appropriated by Congress. So programs were canceled, teachers were laid off, right? Turbulence in the system is no good for anybody, but the research on adult learners shows that turbulence really affects them. Like if there's a delay, if programs are shut down, it's very difficult for them to get back into the system. So nobody benefits from turbulence, but adult learners are really, really affected by this turbulence. And we don't know in the end how many teachers are coming back, how many programs came back, how many students are never going to come back into the system. And we don't know, frankly, what WIOA is going to look like in the future. Could be the current level, could be zero, right? The current administration has talked about zeroing it out. So we don't know. So if the state is almost entirely reliant upon WIOA, that means that all of your programs are vulnerable to those federal level changes in funding, right? And that's something that we want to advocate that we really need to avoid. So let's look at some other states briefly. So in Massachusetts, in sort of converse to us, 75% of the adult education budget in Massachusetts is the state, right? In New York, 69% of the adult education budget is from the state. And in Minnesota, they have a 10-to-1 ratio of state to federal funding. Right. So here are some sister states, some states that, we would align ourselves to. Massachusetts is a state that we're always in competition with, K-12, in terms of who has the best system and who has the best outcomes. Right. And we're flipped, right? We're 25% state and 75% federal. The other issue with the current system is because we're so focused, the state is so focused on the WIOA funding, some adult learners who would benefit from a system can't get services because they're not eligible for a WIOA program. Okay? So this is not an exhaustive list. This is a list of some of the folks who we can't typically serve in WIOA Title II programs, right? So folks that are developing their foundational skills, right? They don't have the language or literacy skills to allow them access into a job training program or to higher levels of adult education. People with learning disabilities, developmental disabilities, particularly those who have aged out of support systems. People who already have work, right? So somebody might have a job, but they want to work on their literacy or language skills, right? So they're not an outcome if they've already got a job. Like that's not an outcome for a WIOA program. People who have aged out of the workforce, older folks who are not working but want their literacy skills or want their language skills. I remember when I was still in Massachusetts, I was working in the Haitian community, and one of my classes was almost all Haitian women over the age of 70, right? And what did they get the English for? Some of the things that you had mentioned: health, self-confidence, all this sort of stuff, not to get a job, but it was still beneficial for them. People who are out of status can't join these programs, right? People in the reentry process or people who are getting ready to start the reentry process. So are there other populations that you think we need to think about and attend to and make an argument for supporting that the WIOA Title II system does not capture or include?
Not necessarily that they're not included, but all these past years when we help many refugees and parolees, now they will count against us because we cannot report on the outcomes. It's related to not being able to work.
All right, so refugees and parolees, because they don't fit these guidelines, you can't report them as an outcome. All right. Other populations? How well, to go back to sort of the health issue, how well are your programs or other programs, situated to help folks with mental health issues?
We're not.
Okay.
Most of us don't have the personnel to deal with that or the training.
Yeah. All right. So
There are exceptions, of course, to everything, but grant-wise, there is no line for it.
All right. So that's another population that doesn't get services, potentially doesn't get services.
They might get services. It's just that not the services they need. The same happens with people that have special needs. They might still come to our programs because there is nothing else, but they're, for the most part, they're not getting the service they need.
Right. Not appropriate services. Any other population that we're not capturing here?
Eric, I'm not sure if we've talked about this once before. Maybe Dr. Kochi can remind me, but what about those on temporary assistance, like for needy family, the TANF? They're often, the funding is often used for need-based work support that we can't provide for them, transportation, things like that. Dr. Kochi, you with me? I know I talked to you about this a few times with some of our needs. She might have walked away.
Yeah, no, we don't really have the funds to provide transportation, but I mean, we can do outreach to the county to see if there are any volunteer organizations or to see if there are any county funds. But even with mental health, the wait list for people to get services is
Astronomical.
huge.
Yeah. So as a related issue, we have talked about this, and I don't have it in this presentation, but the fact that we need to advocate for other supports to take down systemic barriers that get in the way. Transportation is one of them, right? So there are some municipalities that have free public transportation or provide vouchers for folks so that we don't want transportation getting in the way. Another would be increased child support or childcare, right? So you can't go to class if you don't have childcare. So there are these other advocacy issues, social justice issues that we need to make partnerships with other organizations. And so one of the things that we're hoping in the future for us as an organization is folks who have a particular expertise or a connection to those other issues will help us create those partnerships. So for example, if you do work in the housing area, we know if you don't have stable housing, it's very difficult to go to an adult ed program, right? So there's folks that work in like tenants' rights organizing and things like that. So if you're involved in housing advocacy or childcare advocacy, or transportation advocacy, let us know, and we can try to work with you to kind of build those partnerships with other folks. Okay? Any other populations?
Just to go on the mental health, I would say this year, particularly when we restarted our ABE program, we're just seeing nearly everyone in the class has mental health challenges, and we're trying to find, counseling support. What we've also realized is many of these people are eligible for DVRS services. And because we have a vocational rehabilitation department, one of the staff there is like helping us with helping people apply for DVRS services. It's not fast by any means, but we're just trying to help support. But I think in more recent years, I've seen a lot of the people, more native born people who don't have a high school diploma, are falling in that category. And it could also be because we have afternoon classes. Our ABE prep is afternoon, so it's a lot of people who are not employed.
Yeah.
And it's just been a growing proportion of them that seem to have some sort of mental health issues. And reentry also we serve.
So Lynn, I think that's another area, right? If somebody is really connected to folks advocating for expanded mental health services, that we could connect to them and say, I think in each one of these situations, we're concerned about the same population, right? But we're thinking about their education. You may be thinking about their housing, or you may be thinking about their mental health, but we're thinking about the same folks, and their issues are interrelated. And so the more we can connect, I think the better. Karen, were you going to add something?
I've had a couple of students, because I am teaching the night online class, and I've had a few students who were like older students, but they're in high school programs, and I don't know how they've been affected with the funding changes.
Yeah.
But it's like extra support for them, and then they wanted to continue, but they couldn't keep going.
Right. Once they're past like 22 in some districts, or in some places.
Right. And then I was trying to help them find other programs, but that seems to be difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if Christian has more input on that, but because I don't do the administrative.
There were some adult high school programs out there run by different programs, but because of funding restrictions, they are not doing it anymore. And in fact, Eric, you can talk about the old school where there were high school programs everywhere in New Jersey, but those were done away with. And the remnant of that was a few organizations. One of them is actually across the river from Newark in can't think of the name of the town now, but again, most programs have closed because of lack of funding.
Yeah. So,
Right.
okay.
Another big
Yeah.
thing is my program seems to be popular because it's online and it's in the evening. So it's very popular because it's convenient. But I'm sure we're going to talk about this later. But internet availability is an issue. So
Yeah.
that's another factor.
Right. Well, let's talk about that now. I think that this is another issue that people are advocating for: broadband access, Wi-Fi access, and who has the software, who has the hardware, who has the Wi-Fi. And there has been some state level initiatives to increase access at libraries, like people can rent hotspots and get hardware, but it's not everybody. And it's really not that widespread. So that is another issue, right? People's ability to get online.
Right, like the schedule flexibility, because everyone is working and their work schedules constantly change, and then the ability to use the internet to
Yes,
actually take the classes.
right. And some other states have really invested in kind of mobile phone friendly asynchronous work, right? So you don't need a computer, you can do it on your phone. I teach my volunteer classes online, and I can tell the difference between a student who's on a computer or who's on a phone, right? They can't even read stuff when it's on a phone. It's very, very difficult. Half the time they're cooking too, and I'm like, don't get hurt. Like, like I want to be like, your burner's still on, or geez, that much pepper? I don't know about that much pepper. So, but all these issues matter, right? So all these issues are things that we want to be able to talk about. So then our advocacy goals. So for a long time, we've been thinking, like, what do we ask the state for? We can't just go to the state and say, give us more money, right? Give us more money for what? So one of the things that we've been thinking lately is to say, well, we need to go from 3% to 10%, right? 3% is terrible. 10% is not great, but it's double digits, and it would look much better to say that we're serving 10%. So rather than asking for a fixed number in perpetuity, to go to the state and say, look, we're only serving 3, or we think we're serving around 3%. We really need to make the commitment to serve 10% of the students that would be eligible. So part of that, or who would benefit. So part of that is accounting for students who would not fit into the WIO Title II system, right? So expanding access to adult education in the state of New Jersey really widely beyond WIO Title II. Connected to that, we need to limit the vulnerability to changes in federal funding policies, which means the state has to spend money, right? So both of these things. And the idea here is that these are both concrete problems, right? We want to deal with this vulnerability, this flexibility, this variability, and we also want to make sure that we increase the percentage of people that get service from 3 to 10. So those make sense as kind of like put it on a button, go to the state house and be like, we need to go to 10%, like as a starting point, and we need to limit the vulnerability to changes in federal funding policies. That doesn't fit so nicely on a button as like 3 to 10%. That would fit really well, but the second one's a bit wordy for a button. But we can figure out something along those lines. So this is kind of how we've started to lay the groundwork for this after many years. Just as a quick response, both of these seem like an appropriate and strategic way to begin more consistent and intentional advocacy at the state level. You can give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, a frowny face, a smiley face. All right, I see a couple of analog thumbs up. And any digital thumbs up? Yes, I see Carol's digital hand and Diane's digital hand. All right, so we'll keep going in this direction. Okay, so related to some of this, and this is another one of our key advocacy goals, is there something called SCALES, which is the State Council for Adult Literacy Education Services. How many of you know anything about SCALES, or have ever heard it, dealt with it, I see like just a few people, right? So Michelle has, okay, Carol has. All right. So for those of you that don't know, or even for the folks that you do know, this is the actual state legislation surrounding scales, right? So the state created scales, and it says for the purpose to facilitate statewide and local policy development, planning, and consultation with the stakeholders in the area of adult literacy education. That's you. You're the stakeholders. Your students are the stakeholders. Your community is the stakeholders. Your teachers are the stakeholders. And what does the law call for scales to do? Developing a broad-based statewide master plan, right? That means it's not DOL, it's not SETC, right? It's scales. In the law, it says that scales is going to develop a broad-based statewide master plan, right? Another thing that the law mentions is that scales will develop appropriate performance standards and impact measures. So not just top down, but with stakeholder input, scales will develop the ways that performance is going to get evaluated. Another thing the legislation says is that scales is responsible for developing a statewide strategy to facilitate and improve professional development. And then also another recommendation is recommending strategies to broaden adult literacy efforts so that the literacy levels of the entire family are affected. So the state law really empowers scales to play a central role in adult education in the state of New Jersey. Not simply advisory to other parts of the state government, right? But it empowers it to come up with a master plan, to develop performance standards, to create a PD system. This is not how Scales has been working. And in fact, Scales has been defunct for several years. It has not been meeting. And even prior to that, Scales was not doing this level of work. It did not have this level of responsibility. But this, by the law, is its remit, right? This is what the law says that Scales has the responsibility to do. Very different than the way Scales was operating, right? So advocacy goal number 2, let's be in compliance with the state law. So let's see that Scales meets, is revived, but beyond that, is it carrying out the tasks that are assigned to it by law? And does it have the support necessary to complete those tasks? So it's not simply going to Trenton, sitting around a table, saying hi to each other and making a few recommendations. It's literally empowering the field to shape itself. And we have to push the state to follow the law, to be compliant with the law. This is a very clear ask, right? And this is not asking for more money. This is saying you need to follow your own laws, right? Because this is what your law says. So as part of that, right, so Scales is responsible for helping develop, a professional development system. We can look at these other states that I mentioned, right? So Massachusetts, they have something called SABIS, which is System for Adult Basic Education Support. They have ongoing professional development opportunities. They've got resource centers. Minnesota has the Adult Education Support Network. New York's got the Regional Adult Ed Network, RAIN, and Pennsylvania has got the Pennsylvania Adult Education Resources. I don't know, PAIR? I don't know how you say that acronym. There's like an extra A in there. So these other states, our comparative states, have fully functioning adult education professional development centers. In fact, the state of New Jersey used to have 3 centers in different parts of the state, and one of them was housed here at Montclair State University. So the state law says we should have robust professional development. We can look at other states and see what other states are doing. So what have we been doing lately on this? So we've been working on different versions of these background documents and the asks and the demands. One of the things that we're cognizant of is that when we go and we talk to representatives, some of them are going to want to talk to us for half an hour. Some are going to want to talk to us for 2 minutes, right? And so what's the half an hour presentation? What's the 2-minute presentation, right? So we need to make sure that we have really refined versions of both of those and making sure our asks are as concrete as possible. For the first time in my memory, as an organization, we've hired a consultant, a lobbyist to work with on an advocacy strategy. And that person is setting us up with meetings, a series of meetings at the state, and we're working with him to come up with a strategy for that. So far, we've already met with State Senator Gord Johnson. He was very receptive to what we had to say. He basically was like, how much money are you asking for? Like, let's talk turkey, right? And so we were like, well, yeah. So we need to go back with him and say, this is the things that we ask for. In the last couple of weeks, we met with folks in the governor's office, somebody who's her point person on labor, and somebody who's her point person on education. They were also very receptive. We shared with them information about the systems. They were, I think, struck by the lack of services and also by the fact that scale's supposed to exist and doesn't exist. And we have more to come now. So Ray or Jessica, who sat in on those meetings, do you want to say anything about the meetings that we had with Senator Johnson and the folks in Governor Sherrill's office?
I'm just leaning in, waiting to hear if Ray wants to say anything.
By the time I turned the camera on and everything, it was like you lost the mojo for a second.
There he is. I knew you'd want to say something, Ray. You jump in.
It has been very exciting that everyone that we have spoken with so far has been very receptive, whether it was Senator Johnson, or the governor's office, and then we also have some upcoming individuals that we're going to be speaking to on the assembly side as well. Everyone's been super receptive to what we're talking about, and the importance of adult education, which we really worked hard. Eric and Jessica really worked hard to stress that to everyone that we've met so far, how important adult education is, what we're doing, what other states are doing and we're not doing, and so on and so forth. So it's been, I think, tremendous advocacy, and we just want everybody to know who we are, what adult education does. And like I said, it's been very receptive.
Thanks, Ray. Did you want to add anything, Jessica?
I mean, that's been my experience too, and also NJALL. I hear an echo. Do you hear
I just muted Ray, so it's okay.
Oh, okay, it's Ray. It was Ray's fault. Got it. So I think that, we jumped into doing this without having experience doing this kind of advocacy for many years. Our organization had gotten very rusty with this. And I was saying earlier, I think a lot of people in the field inspired us to take a leap forward, and we did. So I feel like we are working on this message, and every time we get a chance to meet with you guys and get input, we're getting better at it and figuring out, what this ask needs to be. And also just by hearing what questions we get asked, we're getting better at it. So I see this as a evolving process. Like, we're not expecting something massive to happen tomorrow, but we're going to keep trying to get better at it and keep asking for your input, so we can deliver the right messaging on behalf of the field.
Thanks, Jessica. That's a perfect segue. So other activities that we're doing, we're crafting a kind of an informational resource. We have a spreadsheet that has the districts in the state and who the reps are, and then what committees they're on, and then what adult education programs are in their district, right? Because it's going to be more impactful if they hear from programs and learners and adults in their community. So we also have a spreadsheet with success stories in each district, right? So we want to be able to go to the reps and say, oh, rep so-and-so, here's this program, and here's this great example of what a student was able to accomplish, right, by going to these. So it's not abstract, it's their district, right? So they're more likely to care about it. We're also planning to have some regional meetings. We did a little bit of this last year. The upside of being online is that everybody can squeeze us into your day. The downside is not breaking bread together, right? And so last year I planned a series of 3 meetings, and two of them happened. And so I'm going to try to do that again this year, to meet regionally so we can hear from different parts of the state. Folks involved in the effort have already started collecting information from other states, budgets from other states, and professional development systems from other states. So we have that information when we make this advocacy effort. And then, no small thing, we are revising our website. Should be up soon, very, 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 very soon. I basically just need one photo from Jessica, and then I think we'll be ready to upload it. But that will have all these sort of advocacy resources and information easily available. So the current website is a little bit outdated. And so we're going to come up with a new website that has more of that information. The biggest thing, right, that we're doing is recruiting people that want to be involved in this. So you don't have to be a member of the executive board. We had a working group of people last year. I convened, I don't know, a half dozen meetings or so with folks who are particularly interested in advocacy. So we'll send that message out again. So for folks who want to get involved, either because you've got ideas based on your own experience in your program, your district, you know what's happening in other states, you're connected to other social justice advocacy issues, all that's important information. And so all of that will benefit our advocacy efforts, and then therefore the adult learners in the state that we want to provide services to. So you can connect with us either at the NJALL account, or you can also reach out to me directly at my personal email address, which is ejlearningjustice@gmail.com. So hopefully this was helpful in terms of thinking about some of the specifics of the need that we can talk about, and some of the things that we really need to advocate for, and how we're going to go about advocating for those things. The rest of the conference, we're going to be drawing on, we're going to be addressing particular aspects of learning, and that will certainly inform our advocacy efforts as well. So I want to thank everybody for coming today, and I look forward to working with you in some capacity around advocacy for the adult learners in the state of New Jersey.